We've been hearing so much stories of courage, stories of how the women overcame the challenges. And when I see those stories, when I hear those stories, because they're in a field which is highly male-dominated, I feel very humbled, and I genuinely feel that I haven't done much. I think all day you have been hearing about shipping and, all matters related to shipping. I have the privilege of being the last speaker of this event, right? So I'm going to take a little diversion. My background is administration, so I have been in shipping for the last 5 or 6 years, but a lot of my learning as to how to be a leader or how to mentor women comes from my experience as an administrator. So I will take a small weakness from my experience of over 35 years and actually share with you what are the challenges and what we can do and what we can achieve and how you face failures also. Before getting into the civil service, as a matter of practice, I actually appeared for the interview of the State Bank of India. This is the public sector Bank of India, the largest bank, interview for management training. And when I appeared for the interview, this was way back in 1983-84, at the interview, I was asked, "What is your age?" Now, I had studied in the US, and I came back from the US to appear for the civil service exam. And this was a question which is not supposed to be asked, especially of a woman, right? So I mentioned the age, and the gentleman across the table said, "Well, if you were my daughter, I would be worried about your marriage." So I wanted to give it back, but obviously it's an interview, so I really, not that I wanted the job, but I actually said very politely, "I think my parents are not worried about that." So that's how it starts 35 years back. But after entering the service, and I come from a background where there was no bias against women. The people, my entire family was like, "You have to study, you have to work." And at some point I said, "Why should I have to work? It's a very big, bad world out there." But I became, the first posting was what you call a sub-collector or a sub-divisional officer, which is the administration of the second smallest unit in the district. And I did not know how to handle the office. I didn't have a government background. I said, "How do I handle this?" So I went to a very senior lady officer and I said, "Ma'am, how do you do this?" "How did you do it when you entered?" She said, "Well, I married somebody from the civil service who was 2 years my senior, so I used to ask him." So then I went to that gentleman and I said, "How do I do this? Because this is about court cases." No, it's a good continuum from this, legal perspective. So there were cases, and there were cases, serious cases, not so serious cases, cases involving land, cases involving women. I said, every lawyer comes with this many books and cases and judgments, and I don't know what to believe and what not to believe. So I asked this gentleman, "How did you do it?" And he said, "Adjourn." I said, "How can you adjourn? I have to give a judgment." He says, "If you give a judgment, you please only one party, but if you adjourn, you please both parties, because they're both hopeful." So, no, but I learned not to adjourn. I said, I have to take a decision, so I had to read all those, case histories and everything, and I had to depend on myself. Then came the next promotion, and I was what is called the Chief Executive Officer of the Zilla Parishad in Maharashtra. One of the best postings I had. This was a posting in a district which is very remote, and there were left-wing extremists who were kidnapping my engineers, kidnapping my officers. So when I was posted there, I had to go and call on my superiors in Mumbai. And then the secretary who was in charge of that department, he said, "Which idiot posted you there?" I said, "Sir, the government." He said, "No, I can't have a woman in that district." These were, remember, an era when there was no cell phone, no computer, not even a landline. You had to book a call and then get the call. He says, "Okay, every day at 4 p.m. you call me and say you're safe." I said, so you're worried that these Naxalites, these are the left-wing extremists, they're going to kidnap me, right? He said, yes, because that had happened about 2 months before. I said, you know, you put me on a good wicket, because remember when they kidnap, and these were genuine extremists, not the ones who are exploitative, even if they kidnap everybody, they're going to send me as the person who negotiates with you, because they don't keep a woman with them and take the accountability. So I said, don't worry, if I get kidnapped, I'll be the one coming before you with their demands. But it became such a difficult district from the viewpoint of somebody who's sitting outside. I didn't tell my husband's parents that I was working in such a district. They would have been very, very worried. But so the ministers, I didn't want ministers to come to the district. So when the ministers would come, I would, talk to the police, and then the ministers would not come, because I said, what magic did you do? Says, we sent a telegram saying there is extremist activity has started yesterday in the district. I'm giving you this to just to lighten the mood, but the fact is, nobody came to the district. So it gave me a lot of freedom. And from this, I learned that when you administer anything, when you're heading the office, please give a lot of freedom to your subordinates. They will learn, they will make mistakes, they will grow. All you need to do is support. And I got that support in that district. And that's how that was a time I actually blossomed as an officer despite the adverse circumstances. My next thing, I came to the secretariat, which is something that no young officer likes to serve in, but I did. And I remember meeting this lady officer, absolutely fantastic officer, and she related an incident to me. She said she was working in the secretariat in the ministry in Delhi, and something had to be done, some decision had to be taken. And she put forth to her boss saying, this cannot be done because the rules don't permit it. And the boss turned around and said, then why are you an Indian Administrative Service officer? I just need a clerk to tell me this rule will not work. What I need from an officer is how to make it work. What is the change that you have to do to make it work? This made an indelible impression in my mind that my job is to ensure that something can work. What has to be changed? Some things can't be changed, but how do you go around it? And I think that was an excellent learning. So again, time and again, somebody tells something, and you just keep it in your mind and use it. We talk about, harassment against women on board a ship. Yes, it's a special case, but it happens everywhere. And I remember when I was working in the secretariat, this time as a senior officer, 2 women came to me and they said they're harassed by their bosses. So I had to actually sit down, call them home over a cup of tea and say, you have to tell me very clearly, distinguish, is this harassment against a woman or is this harassment against a junior subordinate officer? Because the two are very different and sometimes we get confused. So I had to get details from her. And well, there are laws and there are rules, but if you start applying the rules, it's difficult. You have to find a method to just send the point home to the person who is alleged to be harassing, as well as take this person out to safe grounds, which is what I did. I had to speak to the chief secretary and said, can you move this? You have to get proof. It's a lot of legal intricacies, but can we move this officer away from that superior? But the minute she got moved, the message went that there was something wrong with the boss. So there are messages which go. Then came a point when there was an irrigation scam in the state of Maharashtra, and they were looking for an officer to head the irrigation department. Till then, it used to be headed by an engineer, and the problem was there were some scams coming out of the budget and the expenditure, etc. So whenever that happens in India, you look for a general administrator so that they can resolve the issue. Now, everybody wanted a general administrator to go there, but nobody wanted to go there because there's been a scam. So when they approached me, I said, no, I'm going on leave. No, I have too much work. But finally, I said, okay, I'll take a chance. I'll take the plunge. I'll take it, but you have to support me in case there's a problem. It went right to the top of the file, and the question asked was, oh, but a woman? it was 45,000 people worked in that department, most of them engineers, and almost all of them male, probably 10 or 20 women who were engineers. But I had a boss, male boss, who told the chief minister, saying, yes, a woman, what's the problem? It's my responsibility to get work done out of her. It's my responsibility to ensure she delivers, and it's not, you just give me the go ahead and I will get it done. Now look at the confidence that the chief secretary placed on me. It's very important to place that confidence. They called me, he and a senior most officer called and said, listen, whatever decisions you take it on merit and we will be with you. So at one point, I wanted to take action against an engineer. They called me and they said, listen, you are just so new there, don't take this kind of action, go light and we'll support you on that. So this kind of support is what makes you, be successful in future. The kind of trust, the kind of support, and your own hard work also. So I had to learn the engineering, I had to go in depth into it. I'm not an engineer, I'm science-based, but not an engineer. I had to tour every single corner of the state to the remotest corner. I would stay in places that officers would not stay. Reaching out to people was my success, because the engineers normally look at the engineering part. They forget the people. That's my experience in government. So I remember one night I was staying in this remotest part, again near the, where the Naxals were roaming around. At night, 11 o'clock, I get a knock on the door, and these absolute abject poverty people from the village, they show up. I said, what are you doing here at 11 o'clock at night? Says, we have never been listened to. We have not got the compensation for giving up the land for this irrigation project. Can you do something for us? You listen to them, and the political leaders know that you're listening to them, so they have to be on your side because you're listening to the people. The engineers stay quiet, and listening to the people, reaching out to the people is one of the key things, because no matter which field you work in, except if you are a scientist ensconced in the dark rooms of a laboratory where you don't deal with people, you deal with germs, you deal with chemicals, etc. But most other fields, you're doing a job because it is for the larger benefit of some people, some society, some institution, and this is something we forget very often. So that's been my journey through the civil service. And when I became DG shipping, I think the previous speaker mentioned about failures, mentioned about how there are people who work against you. That happens, but your skill lies, it's not even a skill, attitude that lies in converting that adversity into a positive, a constructive work. So when there were elements at work which said you cannot go and represent the country in the IMO meeting because there's something else happening, dynamics happening in Delhi. I used the time to put in e-governance in place, and I think that has got much more returns in terms of the effort put in than anything else would have. So I will just end with this. Somebody asked me while I was working, saying, what do you think, how would you define power? How would you define leadership? And I think I would define power by saying, the ability or the extent to which you help an individual realize his or her potential. Because if you don't do that, your power, according to me, is quite useless. So if you've learned from all the experiences throughout your career or throughout your life, even personal life, and use it to help somebody realize their potential, I think that is power, that is leadership. With a positive note, I don't see why we cannot have more women in maritime, because if you look at the world, India is the country with the highest number of women airline pilots, the highest, because 19% of our pilots are women. Our diplomats, it's one of the highest number of women in professional diplomatic service compared to any other country, and we won't talk even about IT and medical, etc. So day before yesterday, I was in our campus in Navi Mumbai. This is the campus of the university, and I asked them how many women are there. Jillian is sitting there. I think she was definitely pleasantly surprised to see women pouring out, about 28 to 30 of them in nautical science. They are going on to become, first officers and captains. So the potential is there, and we just have to unite, not just the women, but all women and men unite to make this happen. And oftentimes, one is asked, I'm sure all of us have been asked, who's your role model? Right? All of us look for role models. If you ask me, there's none, and there are many, because it's difficult to mention one. But today, we are gathered here, and right in front of us, we have a role model in Sanjam Gupta. From managing a shipping company to founding the Indian chapter of Vista and steering it through for 5 years, to mentoring somebody to take it forward in the future, then to conceptualizing, planning, and implementing such an international conference on diversity. It's not a joke. And I think the way she has grown, she has moved, she has evolved, is an inspiration to all of us. Okay, Sanjam, great going and all the best. And my best wishes to each of you here for a very bright future. Thank you.